Vande Gujarat.
Good morning. My name is Nisha Mehta and I'm the Functional English Trainer with Scope. I welcome you all to another module of Linguaskills. Earlier we had discussed a lot of things about speaking, Linguaskill speaking exam. However, in this we are going to begin with Linguaskill reading module. We are going to learn a lot about what questions are asked in the reading section. Also, let us just first see what Linguaskill examination is all about. Linguaskill examination is a computer-based test that can be taken anywhere by the candidates in the world. Now, Linguaskill is available in two options to all the candidates: Linguaskill General and Linguaskill Business. Linguaskill General will test the ability of the candidate in the general English or English used in routine or daily routine. However, Linguaskill Business, it assesses the ability of the candidate in English language in 4 aspects, but in a business or a corporate setting. The 4 aspects that the candidate is assessed on is reading, listening, writing, and speaking. We have already discussed the speaking modules in the earlier series. Today, we will discuss about the reading tasks that are asked in the Linguaskill examination. Now, let's go ahead and see what exactly Linguaskill exam is all about. As I said, Linguaskill is a computer-based test and it can be taken anywhere by the test takers. Now, Linguaskill basically tests the proficiency of English language of the candidate in all the 4 aspects. But since this is a module which is related to business, it is Linguaskill Business, the candidate will be assessed in all the things related to business or corporate setting. The proficiency of the language is assessed on the CEFR scale. Now, what exactly is CEFR scale? CEFR refers to Common European Framework for Reference of Languages. Now, this is the scale that starts or begins with A1, which is a beginner level, and it ranges up to C2, which is a proficient user. Candidates are given questions based on different difficulty levels, ranging from simple to tough or difficult levels. Now, Linguaskill is available in 2 options. As I mentioned earlier, that Linguaskill Business and Linguaskill General. So 2 different skills are judged in the examination. The general exam tests the proficiency of language which is used in real or routine life, whereas the business exam tests the proficiency of language used in a business or a corporate setting. Let's move ahead and see what is the format of the reading test. Since we are actually doing the reading module, in this entire module we are going to discuss what is the format of the reading test, as well as we are going to give the simple tips or instructions to follow to ace the test. Now, let's look at what do we have under the format of the test. The candidate will see 5 questions in total under the reading section. So there will be 5 questions. 5 questions candidate को दिखाए जाएंगे under the reading test. There is no timer for the test. However, the candidate still needs to finish the reading on time. 5 questions आपको दिखाए जाएंगे और वो 5 questions का टाइमर नहीं है, लेकिन टोटल टाइम जो आपको दिया जा रहा है उसके अंडर वो टेस्ट कंप्लीट करना ज़रूरी है. Let's move on to the next point in the format. It says the question consists of. Now, reading module has a couple of questions under it that the candidate has to finish within the given time limit. Now, what are those questions that are asked to the candidate is something that we are going to see. कौन से questions candidate को पूछे जाएंगे वो हम थोड़ा सा डिटेल में जानेंगे so that the candidate is able to get an idea of what he will be assessed on or what sort of questions will he be asked in the test. Now, the question first that will be asked in the examination is gap fill with choices. Now, what exactly is gap fill? Gap fill जो question है वो candidates को दिया जाएगा जहाँ पर उन्हें एक sentence दिया जाएगा, उस sentence के अंदर एक gap होगा जो उन्हें fill करना होगा with the choices given. Now, the candidate has to fill the gaps given in the sentence and they have to fill it for the choices given in the test. Gaps आपको दिए जाते हैं और gaps में choices भी दी जाएंगी. Now, among the 4 choices, you have to make sure you fill in the best possible choice or the answer. Test takers in this will read an advertisement, notice, diagram, memo, letter, and choose the sentence that matches closely with the given text. Now, in the gap fill questions, there will be one sentence. One sentence will have a gap. Now, what happens is, in the gap, the candidate has to fill whether it will be a noun or it will be a verb choice or it can be anything which is related to conjunction or a preposition. So the gap fill choices will be closely related to each other. It will be a very close choices that the candidate has to think about and he has to fill the best possible answer in the gap. Now, let's move on to the next part. The next question that will be asked to the candidate will be choose the correct answer from the options given, which will be a small text. Now, once you choose the correct answer, multiple choice question will be given to the candidate. इस question में the second task जो आपको दिया जा रहा है, उस question के अंदर candidate को एक छोटा सा text दिखाया जाएगा अपनी computer screen पर. So the candidate, he has to pick up the right option from the multiple choices and has to fill. Now, what is the point that the candidate has to remember under this section? The candidate will be provided 4 choices, but the choices will be based on the passage or the text shown on the screen. The text can be anything which is related to advertisements, notice, diagram, memos. Now, again, the candidate, जो candidate है, उसे ये देखना है कि वो text समझ पा रहा है और वो text को समझ के interpret करके और उसका आंसर आपको मल्टीपल चॉइस में से ढूंढना है. So the candidate fills in, reads the text, understands the text, interprets the text, and then fills in the answer. The options given, अब यहाँ पर जो options आपको दिए जाएंगे, वो options जो हैं, वो बहुत closely एक दूसरे से match कर रहे होंगे. But अगर आपने text को interpret सही किया है, तो आप उसको fill करने में नहीं चूक सकते. Now let's move on to the next format of the test. It says the question that will be asked to you next would be type the correct answer in the blank. Now type the correct answer in the blank means that you will be given a sentence in which there will be a gap. So the gap has to be filled in with either a verb or an adjective or anything related to parts of speech. However, the gap should be filled with the correct word that is missing in the sentence. Now, the candidate, the most difficult part of the question is that the candidate will not get any choices in the question. Now, as we looked at the first format or the first question of the test was that you will be given a gap, but the candidate at the same time gets choices to fill in. He has to choose from the 4 choices that he gets. But in this particular question, you will not get the choices, and the choices will be filled by the candidate himself. Let's move on to the next set of questions that will be asked to a candidate. It is gap fill open. So what a gap fill open is, let's get to know the question first, and then we are going to move on to understanding how we can, or how the candidate can actually ace this particular task. So the candidate will fill the gaps with the missing words. As mentioned earlier, the gaps are supposed to be filled. Now in the entire reading test, let me share a small thing with you, that in the entire reading test, what happens is the candidate goes through various questions where the candidate will see a lot of gaps, a lot of fill-ups. Now those fill-ups will either have to be filled without any choice given. You just have to see what is the best fit for the blank. And sometimes where you get the questions as gap fill with the choices, you're going to get the choices. Make sure you pick up the right choice and fill in the gaps. So in short, at times the candidate would get the choices to fill in, but at times the candidate has to fill the choices on his own with the words that he thinks is the best fit for the blank. So in this particular task, which is a gap fill open task, the candidate will fill the gaps with the missing words, but he will have no choices. He can fill in or choose the answer accordingly. The last task is the extended text. Now, what is the difference between the extended text and the small text is, the small text will have just a couple of sentences, like 4 to 5 sentences, and the candidate has a multiple choice question based on the same text. So 4 to 5 sentences, which is a smaller text, and one question that will be a multiple choice question. However, in the extended text, the candidate will actually get a longer text with, say, maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs, and the passage will be a longer passage as compared to the smaller text. Now that passage will be read by the candidate, and the candidate has to answer at least 5 questions. कैंडिडेट को 5 questions based on the text आंसर करने पड़ेंगे. So candidates will choose the correct answer from the multiple choice answers. Again, longer extended text में भी ये एक candidate के लिए benefit है that it will be a multiple choice question and answers. So the question answers can range from 5 to 6 in this section, and the candidate has to pick the right option. Let's move ahead and see what we have as general instructions and tips for the reading module. Now, as I said, that the reading module will have a lot of gaps, a lot of fill-ups, or a lot of reading where the candidate has to read or go through the entire text and answer it in the form of multiple choice questions. So what are some of the instructions and tips for the reading module that we are going to look at? Now, in the first question, the candidate will read the words given around the gaps to decide what is missing in the gaps. Now, in the first question, as I said, the candidate will get choices, 4 choices to fill the gap. However, why it is difficult to fill in the gaps? That is because the gaps that are provided to the candidate, or the options that are given to the candidate, will be closely or will be similar to one another. Now, just as an example, I would just put it as an example for you to understand. Couple of words that mean the same thing is happy, happiness, jolly, and gay. So these are 4 words which are of the same meaning. However, the gap can accommodate only one word which is the best fit. Let's take an example of the similar words. I am the dash person on the earth. I am the dash person, the gap. There is a gap. I am the dash person on the earth. Now if I say I am the dash person, so the dash or the gap, कैंडिडेट को पहले देखना पड़ेगा कि आसपास गैप के कौन से वर्ड्स हैं. Now let me give you the options. If I say I am the dash or the gap person on the earth, let's look at the options. The first option is happiest. The second option is happiness. The third option is gay. And the fourth option is jolly. These are the words which are very closely linked to each other. Do you think that I would just say, I am the jolly person on the earth? I am the jolly person on the earth? Do you think that is the right way to say it? Or can you fit, I am the happiness person on the earth? Can you actually fit, I am the gay person on the earth? Which means the same thing? Or will you go ahead and write, I am the happiest person on this earth? Yes, you guessed it right. It is, I am the happiest person on this earth. Now, how do we go about understanding how exactly we are going to say that this is the right answer? कैसे पता चलेगा कि सही जवाब क्या है? क्योंकि जो words हैं वो बहुत closely linked हैं. वो closely linked हैं या बहुत similar हैं एक दूसरे से. So कैसे एक candidate अंदाज़ा लगाएगा कि कौन सा word सही है? Now, the candidate can look around the gaps. जो गैप आपको दिया गया है उसके आसपास कैंडिडेट को देखना पड़ेगा कि आसपास के शब्दों का प्रयोग कैसे किया गया है. What are the words used around the gaps? Now, if you look at the sentence, I am the. Do you see that there is a the? There is an article right there, just there before the gap. Now, where do we use the in middle of the sentence? If I'm using the, there has to be an adjective and adjective has to be in the superlative degree. वहाँ पर एक quality आएगी because वहाँ पर the लगा हुआ है. Now अगर the लगा हुआ है या तो quality होगी या फिर वहाँ पर एक noun होगा. However, the sentence, if you see, it is already beginning with a noun or a pronoun. I. So, we cannot use a noun again. And then it has to be an adjective. Why? Because I say that I am, and then there's a gap, person on this earth. Person again is a noun. So right after the gap, there is a noun. We cannot use two nouns together. So let's see, the will have an adjective. However, the degree of the adjective will be the superlative degree, which is going to have est towards the end. That is one of the reasons we had chosen the answer as the happiest. So, the first rule that the candidate has to follow is to make sure that whenever you're given an option of filling the gaps and you are given 4 choices which are closely related to each other, which are similar words, and you have to choose the best possible answer, the best possible answer can only be chosen once you actually look around the gaps. वो gaps के आसपास अगर आप देखेंगे, जो words आसपास हैं, वो आपकी मदद करेंगे आपको gap fill करने में. Now, as I said, वो gap के अंदर आपके nouns, you can also fit in your nouns, you can also fit in your verbs, it can also be something like adjectives or adverbs. However, candidate एक और बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ notice कर सकते हैं. Now, in the options given, in the choices given, gaps के लिए जो fill करने के लिए choices दी जाती हैं, the candidate can actually go ahead and see whether the choices are verbs, adjectives, adverbs or nouns. Now, for example, if I say all the words as verbs, like take, or give, or maybe pick up or keep, if I use all these choices, or they are all the choices given to me in the exam, I would just see what kind of options are these. Are they all verbs? If they are all verbs, do they mean the same thing? अगर ये verbs है, ये क्रिया है, तो क्या इस सभी का मतलब एक है? Try to fit in the word in the gap and try to read the complete sentence. पूरा sentence पढ़ने की कोशिश कीजिए हर word को लगाकर. जब आप word लगाएंगे, you will see that the word will actually fit in, or it is not going to fit at all in the gap. That's where you know that's not the right answer. Now let's look at the next instruction and tip on the screen and see what do we have. It says, to know what is missing in the gaps, the candidate must know the placement of different parts of speech in the sentence or the basic sentence structure. Now this is one of the most important points that we have. One of the most important things that you're going to read about, you're going to hear about in the entire module. Whether it is speaking or whether it is a reading module, if a person or a candidate knows where the parts of speech supposed to be fixed in the sentence will never go wrong, or the choices will never go wrong. Now, what exactly are parts of speech? I'm going to share that with you in a very small explanation. So, parts of speech basically are the 8 parts used in the sentence, used to form a sentence. Now, there are 8 parts that forms a complete sentence. What are those 8 parts? Let's look at them one by one. The first part we have is noun. The second part is a pronoun. Third is a verb. Fourth is an adverb. Fifth, an adjective. Sixth, a preposition. Seventh, a conjunction. And last, which is the 8th one, is the interjection. Now, why am I talking about these parts in a reading module? There is a reason for that. Whether it is a reading module or a speaking module, it is very important for the candidate to understand that these parts actually form your sentences. Without these parts, or with certain missing things here and there, a sentence that we make is incomplete. Now, as we spoke about the gap fill-ups or the gaps, filling in the gaps, did you just notice that the gaps, we were actually going ahead and looking at what is there just before and after the gap? We were actually looking for the parts that are placed before and after the gap. Now, why were we looking at the parts? Because these parts actually form the complete sentence. Now, the second instruction is that when the candidates are preparing for a reading examination, it is important that you know what is a sentence structure. Sentence structure basically talks about all these parts fitted in the right manner. Now, all these parts, whenever we use these parts to frame a sentence, these parts come in order in the sentences. ये parts जितने भी हैं, 8 parts, वो एक order में आते हैं जब आप sentence form करते हैं तो अगर एक gap fill का question आपको दिखाई देता है screen पर, when you have to fill in the gaps, you have to see what part can be filled in. What is that part which is missing right from there? Now, for example, if I talk about prepositions, prepositions are the common words, like simple words, small little words that change the meaning or have, add to the meaning of the sentences. Let's say in, on, at. In, on, at. They are prepositions. They are common prepositions we use in our sentences. अगर ये prepositions गलत place होते हैं sentence के अंदर, तो आपका पूरा sentence का मतलब बदल जाता है. The entire meaning of the sentence changes. However, इनकी placement, prepositions की जो placement है, वो प्लेसमेंट भी हमेशा एक वर्ब के बाद होती है. That's a trick and it is a tip for everyone. So the placement of the prepositions is always after the verb. So when you look at the verbs, if there is something, you see that the verb is mentioned in the gap, just before the gap. If there is a verb given and then it is connecting with a noun, or maybe you have a noun after the gap, there is a possibility, or if there are choices given to you and they're all prepositions, go ahead, fill in the right preposition, because the preposition is placed right after the verbs. Now the sentences always begin with a noun, with a pronoun, or with an article. There can be sentences beginning with conjunctions, but in that case, the sentence structure or the pattern is a little different. So always make sure that when you are preparing for the examination, when you're preparing for the reading examination, you know the 8 parts and their placement. Now just in a small instruction here, I would just want to add what is the basic structure, or how do these parts fit in a basic sentence. एक basic sentence में ये parts किस तरीके से लगाए जाते हैं उसके बारे में मैं एक छोटा सा विवरण दूंगी. Now, the first part or the sentence always begins with a noun or a pronoun. You will always see that there are nouns or pronouns in the beginning of the sentence. Then the sentence would have auxiliaries or helping verbs, which is not a part of speech, but it is a part of tense. Just to share whether the sentence will be in the past, present, or future tense. So the sentence began with a noun or a pronoun. Second, we have the auxiliaries. Third, we have the main verb, the main action, जिसे बोलते हैं हम क्रिया. So the main action will be there. Then, if the first noun or pronoun has to be connected with the last one, there will be a preposition right after the verb. Now, if at all you want to change certain things and you want to include some qualities like adjectives in the sentence, you can just remove the verb and add the quality. So I'll give you a simple example of how we frame sentences, how we bring together all the parts and form a sentence. So when I say that the sentence starts with a noun pronoun, has a helping verb, has a main verb, and that's it. That's a basic sentence structure. So what's an example for this? I am going to the office. I am going to the office. Do you see that I is a noun or a pronoun, am is an auxiliary or a helping verb, going is a main verb. And now, if I stop right there on going पे अगर मैं रुक जाती हूँ, my sentence is still complete. But अगर मुझे आगे एक noun लगाना है, after a verb if I have to use a noun, there has to be a preposition like to. Now अगर मैंने बोला कि मैं ऑफिस जा रही हूँ, I'm going to the office, office is a place. That is one of the reasons I have just put in to right there. So this is how a sentence is combined, or a sentence is formed combining all the parts of speech. If you don't know what part comes where, you won't be able to fill in the gaps. Now let's move ahead and see what is the general instruction right there on your screen. It says the given options to fill the gaps are quite similar to each other. Hence, the candidate will first figure out what are the gaps, what are some of the similar words, and you can also see what is the correct answer. As I mentioned, the candidate will have to go about seeing what exactly are the words placed right before and after the gap. So once you know what is after and before the gap, you would exactly know that this is the word that this is the part that I have to fit. Now, candidate must study collocations to understand which word would fit in the gaps instead of studying the vocabulary lists of single words. This is one of the most important things that the candidate has to remember. Now, what is that important thing? What are collocations? We are going to do it in this module. You'll get an idea as to what exactly is a collocation. But before that, the candidate should study the collocations. That's a general instruction for everyone who is going through or preparing for the reading module. Collocations क्या होती हैं, हम उसके बारे में डिटेल में इस मॉड्यूल में पढ़ेंगे. एंड कुछ कॉमन collocations जो यूज़ होती हैं उसके बारे में भी हम पढ़ेंगे. Now, what are collocations? Why they are needed? Instead of, collocations आप अगर पढ़ेंगे, you are going to form a strong vocabulary or you're going to form a strong speaking structure or writing structure. Single words पढ़ने के क्या फ़ायदे हैं और क्या नुकसान हैं, और collocations को पढ़ने के क्या फ़ायदे और नुकसान हैं रीडिंग मॉड्यूल में, इसके बारे में हम आगे जानेंगे. Collocations क्या होती हैं? What are collocations exactly? We are going to read about them too. Let's move on to the next general instructions and some of the tips for the reading module. It says the candidate must read the texts. The candidate must read the texts or extended texts carefully. Now, these are some of the general instructions that are given to the candidates. General instructions, ये सभी candidates को follow करना ज़रूरी है. Now, the candidate must read the texts, extended texts, carefully to understand the views stated. So, in short, I would just say that, if you have longer texts, if you have extended text, always make sure that you read the text very carefully and understand the viewpoint stated. किसी भी टेक्स्ट के लिए हम अपना assumption नहीं यूज़ करेंगे. We are not going to use any assumptions of our own. टेक्स्ट के अंदर जो लिखा हुआ है आपको उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन या उसको समझना ज़रूरी है. आप अपना कोई भी इंटरप्रिटेशन एक्सटेंडेड टेक्स्ट पे नहीं लगा सकते. Understand the viewpoint stated, understand the text, then move on to the multiple choice questions and pick the correct answer. That is one of the basic tips or one of the important tips of this entire reading module. Now, candidate must prepare for some crucial grammar topics like prepositions, articles, auxiliaries, pronouns, adverbs, verbs and conjunctions. As I mentioned earlier, that this entire reading module is all about filling the gaps. Now, gaps के अंदर आपसे कुछ भी पूछा जा सकता है. You can be asked to fill in the gaps, maybe with verbs, maybe with pronouns, maybe with adverbs, or simple words like prepositions and conjunctions. अब gaps के अंदर कुछ भी पूछा जा सकता है. That is one of the reasons a candidate must prepare for some crucial grammar topics too while preparing for the reading module. Now let's see what is the last instruction that we have on our screen, and it says candidates can also make flashcards of the words that are frequently a part of the exam. Now it says the candidate, what are flashcards? Let's just talk about what exactly are flashcards. Now flashcards are small chits or small you can say small flashcards or a cards, a sort of a thing that a candidate can make or write, and they can be based on the frequently used words in the examination. जो एग्ज़ाम में रेगुलरली या फ्रीक्वेंटली पूछा जाता है उससे रिलेटेड फ्लैश कार्ड्स कैंडिडेट बना सकते हैं. So you might have seen the playing cards, the cards that are there, the smaller ones. Flashcards can be made using the words that are frequently used or asked in the examination. Now, what is the use of making flashcards? First of all, it is very difficult for a human being. एक इंसान अगर आप हैं, आप एक इंसान के तौर पर अगर आप सोचें तो इतनी बड़ी लिस्ट एक vocabulary की list where there are more than 2 lakh words, you won't be able to remember. उसे याद रखना बहुत difficult है. So, इन वर्ड्स को आप किस तरीके से याद रख सकते हैं? आप एक स्मॉल कार्ड पर उन वर्ड्स को लिखिए जो फ्रीक्वेंटली यूज्ड वर्ड्स हैं. राइट द वर्ड्स ऑन द कार्ड्स एंड जस्ट राइट अ सेंटेंस यूजिंग दैट वर्ड. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इज it is easier for the candidate to remember all the words which he has on the flashcard. The flashcards can be taken anywhere, क्योंकि वो छोटे पॉकेट साइज फ्लैश कार्ड्स होते हैं, वो आप कहीं पर भी लेके जा सकते हैं, कहीं पर भी आप पढ़ सकते हैं. दे आर हैंडी. So what happens is the candidate has a handy flashcard where he can just read the words used frequently in the examination, and he will also be able to remember all the words because there are sentences that are formed using the same words. So these are some of the basic tips and instructions. These are some of the general instructions that we shared right before the test. And the format is, the candidate is now well aware of the format too. Let's look at what do we have next about collocations. Let's see what do we have on our screen. So it says, what are collocations? Now, what are collocations? Collocations mean two or more words that go together. एक word नहीं, दो या दो से ज़्यादा words जो साथ में आते हैं और sentence में लगते हैं, उन words को आप हमेशा साथ में ही देखेंगे. You will see these words together. They go together. They are actually put together. They cannot be separated. And once you speak these collocations, you will see that they seem, the sentence that you have used or the sentence that you have formed is the right sentence because the words go together. So collocations are nothing but it is just a mean or just two or more words that are joined together to make a sense in a sentence. Why do we use collocations? Language becomes easier to understand and natural. So when you use collocations in a sentence, you will see that the sentences become very natural. They become like you are speaking somewhat like the native speakers, or they would seem correct. Language becomes easier means the flow of the sentences is maintained when you use collocations. अगर कहीं पर भी एक शब्द गलत आता है, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो सेंटेंस आप नहीं बोल पाएंगे. It will not be easy for you to say the sentence, and you will also feel that the sentence is incorrect, somewhere incorrect. So the collocations are the words that go together. They are put together in a sentence. Now, why do people use collocations? Another bigger reason is that the candidate gets alternative ways to express himself. The candidate gets a lot of ways to express himself. I'll just give you an example here to understand the collocations in a better way. The collocation or the example is that we use have in place of, have is a word. It can be used as an auxiliary. It can be used as a main verb too. Now, if I say I have or I'm having my lunch, that's just a simple example. I'm having my lunch. So have is used as a main verb here, along with food item. So there is this have, which is verb, and a food item, which is a noun. So they are coming together. Now again, if I say I have a headache, if I say I have a headache, that doesn't mean that I'm eating something, I'm consuming something. No, I just have a headache. Right? जिसे आप कहते हैं होना. मुझे सिर दर्द है या हेडेक है, होने को आप have कह रहे हैं. Whereas जो दूसरा सेंटेंस था उसमें मैंने कहा था कि I am having lunch, which is have is related to consuming. So collocations का मतलब है कि दो words जो साथ में आ रहे हैं और सेंटेंस में एक सेंस बना रहे हैं, एक मतलब बना रहे हैं. So how do people use collocations and why do people use collocations? Because language becomes easier for the candidates, Also, the candidate can express themselves, or candidates can express themselves in the speaking modules in a very fluent way. That is one of the reasons collocations are used. But in the reading section, collocations will be used in the gaps. जो गैप्स आपको फिल करने के लिए दिए जाएंगे उसके अंदर हो सकता है कि वो collocation वाले शब्द ही हों. Let's look at what do we have next as a collocation. Why do people use it? Reading and revising regularly is the best method to use the collocations. And collocations, वहाँ पर कुछ examples screen पर आपके दिखाई दे रहे होंगे. There are some of the examples that you can see. First, we have remember vaguely. It's a collocation again. Remember distinctly is again a collocation. The two words that are used together. Remember vividly. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember vividly. Remember rightly. So you would see that remember is used with different set of words. Mainly they were adverbs. Remember is a verb, and the next word that is used along with the verb is an adverb. So the two words that are coming together, they make sense. Now let's see some types of collocations that a person can use. What are some of the types of collocations? On the left, you're going to see the type, and on the right, you're going to see the example. Now, we can use an adverb and an adjective as a collocation. आप एक एडवर्ब और एक एडजेक्टिव वर्ड को कंबाइन करके भी कॉलोकेशंस आ सकते हैं. रीडिंग मॉड्यूल में जब आप गैप्स को फिल करते हैं, ऑलवेज सी कि कहीं आगे या पीछे उस गैप के पहले या बाद में कहीं कोई एडवर्ब या एडजेक्टिव तो नहीं है. जस्ट सी बिफोर एंड आफ्टर द गैप, डू यू हैव एन एडजेक्टिव और एन एडवर्ब? So the collocation can be fit, or collocation can be fitted with the right choice, or the gaps can be filled in with the right choice. Now, for example, if you look at the example right there, it says completely satisfied. Do you see completely is an adverb? Now, completely and satisfied. It is possible that in the examination, let's just take a sentence saying, I am, then there is a gap, satisfied with the customer service. I am dash, or there is a gap, satisfied with the customer service. Now there will be 4 choices. Now out of the 4 choices, there would be a word as completely. It could be, something related to gently. The word can be completely, gently, vaguely, vividly. However, we have to choose the right word. So the right word would be, I am completely satisfied with the customer service. So the gaps can have these collocations. It is necessary, it is essential that the candidate understands what word is missing or what is right there before and after the gap. Just look at the words, categorize what part of speech is given before and after the gap, and then try to fill in the gaps with the correct choices. Now let's look at an adjective and a noun. So there can be a collocation that consists of adjective plus noun. The example right there on your screen is excruciating pain or delicious cuisine. Now if you see excruciating and delicious, both the collocations are, or both the parts of speech are the adjectives. And pain or maybe cuisine is a noun. So if you combine them in a sentence, you will see, I have an excruciating pain in my knee. Or maybe the party had a delicious cuisine. Last night's party has a delicious cuisine. Let's move on to the next set of collocation. It says we can have verb plus noun. We can also have noun plus verb. We can also have verb plus an adverb and a noun plus noun. So some of the examples listed under verb plus noun is commit mistakes, where commit is a verb and mistake is a noun. If you look at noun plus verb collocation, it says lion roared or the snow is falling off. So first there will be a noun and then there will be a verb. Lion is a noun and roared, if you see roared is a verb. In the collocation which we have for verb plus adverb, you will see that verb is an action. So if you look at the example, it says placed gently. So somebody placed the vase gently on the table. If you say placed gently, placed is a verb and gently is an adverb. Remember vaguely. I remember vaguely what the train number is. Or I remember vaguely the train number. So if you see, remember is a verb and vaguely is an adverb. Similarly, we have the noun plus noun collocations too. The category of noun, again used with another noun. It's a surge of anger or round of applause. We always use this common collocation as, can we give a round of applause to the entire team? So what is round of applause? Round is again a noun, plus applause is again a noun. Surge is a noun. Anger is again a noun. So these are some of the types of collocations that one can study or the candidate can prepare himself on before appearing for the reading examination in Linguaskills. Now let's move ahead and see some of the commonly used collocations in the examination. So some of commonly used collocations in the exam can be, now if you look at the top, the columns have, do, make, take and keep. These are all the verbs. Do you notice that these are all the verbs? The verbs can have some of the words linked to them. Like have can have, the verb can have an adverb, the verb can have a noun, the verb can have an adjective, or the verb can have anything which is related to noun or an adverb. Let's look at the first commonly used collocation in the examination. It says, have a good time. Have you seen people, बहुत बार ऐसा होता है जब आपने किसी को बोला होगा, okay, let's meet tomorrow, till then, have a good time. So, आप किसी को कहते हैं कि have a good time. What does have a good time mean? Have a good time, have doesn't mean that you have to consume something. It says have a good time. Good time, good is what? It is an adjective. Time is a noun. So have good. Now along with the verb, I have used an adjective. So it is possible that most of the times a question can be asked to the candidate. There would be a gap and then there would be a sentence like a good time. People were dash a good time. So people were having a good time. That's where the usage of have would be used. So similarly, we have a lot of collocations starting with or beginning with have. Like have a holiday, have lunch, have sympathy, have water, have a great day or a year. We have more collocations related to do, make, take and keep. Do nothing, do a business, do your best, and then do someone a favor, do an exercise. That's again a collocation. You see the same collocations with the other verbs like make, take and keep. So it says make a difference, make money, make progress, make room, make mistake. Now all the collocations you might see have a different meaning. The verbs are used with different parts of speech. Like for example, if I say make money, you have to make a lot of money, right? So what exactly we have with make? It's money. Money is a noun and make is a verb. So there can be different parts of speech used with each other to form the collocations. This is how, if the candidate is going ahead and preparing himself for the reading examination, make sure to fill in the gap questions to ace the test or to ace the reading gap fill-up questions. He has to make sure he studies the collocations, the frequently used or the commonly used collocations in the business atmosphere or the business setting. So these were just some of the examples that is shown on your screen. Let's move ahead and see the sample questions. I'll just give you a minute to think about all the possible answers that you can fill in the gaps. Let's take a minute and see what are the possible answers that you can fill in. So the first question says, always be proactive when you are at work to dash and then time and energy. Do you think it will be make, save or keep? I'm sure you guessed it right. Always be proactive when you are at work to save time and energy. Let's move on to the next one. You need to, there is a gap, the password in your computer. Now, if you look at enter, keep and move, everything, every word is closely related. Now, what a candidate or you can do is, first of all, I told you that look for the words around the gaps. आपको gaps के आसपास के words देखने हैं. अगर आप आसपास के words देखते हैं and you can find out what is the right answer, that is one way to fill in the gap. If you don't know, you can just pick up every word and put right there just to see if the word is right or wrong. So let's say you need to keep the password in your computer. You need to move the password in your computer. You need to enter the password in your computer. I'm sure by now you might have guessed it right. It says you need to enter the password in your computer. So similarly, you can do the rest of the questions as a practice for the gap fill-up sentences. You have another minute to complete, and then we are going to look at the answers. Okay, let's look at the answers. So the third answer is, it will be difficult to succeed in the examination if you don't study. I'm sure you might have guessed it right by now. Although I ran fast, I missed my train or my bus. She was so fast in her running that she broke her own record. There are some other sentences. The teammates did not understand what I was saying and they missed my point completely. All the team members can take a break and then go for the meeting. So, this was the end of the reading module 1. We got to know so many things about how the test, what are the questions that will be asked to the candidate in this test. We also learned about the format of the reading module, and we also did some of the questions that would help you ace the examination or will give you an idea of the questions asked in the examination. In the next reading module, we will bring up some of the grammar topics which the candidates can prepare themselves in and can ace the next couple of tasks in the reading module. That was all from my end. Thank you so much.